listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio, man. We are here once again, and man, today we have a special guest. I have to emphasize special guest because this guy flew in today, and that says a lot about him. A very successful entrepreneur, the one and only Dan D. Johnson. He is in studio today. Today's topic that we're going to be talking about is setbacks to setups, transforming failure into success. He's going to tell us everything about his powerful story from bankruptcy to despair to being a very successful entrepreneur with many chapters in between. First and foremost, Dan, thank you for your time flying out here to San Antonio. And how you doing, man?
Man, I'm empowered. It's good to be here, Shamaya. You're doing some great work with I Am Refocused Radio, so it's my pleasure to come and just chill with you for a little bit.
And like I said, it says a lot for someone that's so busy like yourself, just to clear your schedule to have a conversation. I feel like it's a very important conversation. So for our audience, kind of paint the picture for us. Tell us a little bit about your background and what sparked you to become an entrepreneur.
Well, you know what? I believe that my story is not necessarily unique. I believe that my story is a story that many, I would just say African-American young men growing up in the inner city in quote unquote what we consider the hood, the projects, whatever the case may be, is very similar. That was my background, and came up in abject poverty. You know, from homelessness to sleeping in cars and, you know, not really knowing. All I had was an idea of what life could look like, even though the reality that I was living in did not match that idea. And so when you're dealing with gangs, when you're dealing with drugs, and all of that was part of my life, you have the tendency to think that this is it. And I would say, as I shared with you before, by the grace of God, I believe that we have been able to take some of those challenges that we've experienced and transform them into success. From being kicked out of a couple of high schools, from selling dope, from being in gangs, you know, to saying, hey, man, I don't want to live no more, for suicide attempts.
Wow.
You know, so when you look at life, sometimes life happens. And life happens whether you're ready or not. It happens, you know, it's hard to prepare for it, especially the life that you didn't give yourself. So, you feel me? The life you didn't give yourself. When you begin to think about some of the challenges that people go through as children, and the trauma of their childhood creates the drama of their adult life. Wow. And so when you don't deal with that trauma, when you don't deal with the things that took place in your life that you had nothing to do with, it will ultimately deal with you.
Now, tell us, where did you grow up, man? And what was school life for you? And
So I grew up in a Chi-town. That's the Chicago born, Chicago bred. I love my city. That is my city. It is not as bad. Let me throw that out there. I'm an advocate for the city of Chicago. Yeah. Because, you know, when you look at the news is always highlighting how bad, quote unquote, Chicago is. And the truth of the matter is Chicago represents the second largest, I believe, African-American city, the third largest metro city in the United States, with 2.4 million people. Well, we had 700 murders, but we had 2.4 million people. Now, we don't want anybody to die, right?
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, per capita, we're not in the top 20 of the worst cities or the unsafe cities in the nation. So that being said, I grew up in one of the worst communities in the city of Chicago, and at some point it was known as one of the worst communities in the nation, and that is the Inglewood community. Inglewood community is a community that was and is stricken by gangs, drugs, alcoholism, all kind of stuff. Anything that you could think of that has happened in the community by which I grew up in. And so I became part of the ills of that community, and then made a decision that I did not want to continue to become a product of my environment or allow the ills of that environment to take me under. But the only way I was going to get out is if I made a decision to do something different.
Once again, listen to Refocus Radio, talking to our guest, Dan Johnson. You can go to his website, dandjohnson.com. Today, we're talking about setbacks to setups, transforming failure into success. Now, knowing your background, did you have any mentors, anybody growing up in Chicago area, anybody that kind of set your mind that one day, yeah, I'm going to be an entrepreneur? How was that like for you?
So I can't say that I had mentors that said one day I'll become an entrepreneur. I didn't have an entrepreneur mentor. What I had was a mother that taught me the streets. And so she taught me how to bag cocaine, cut cocaine, distribute cocaine, and all of this before I made, the real street. And all of this was before I went to high school. Wow. So the reality is, when I began to look at that, I mean, if you can sell drugs successfully, you can build a business. And what does that mean? So here's our reality. When you deal with selling drugs, you got to deal with, you buy wholesale, you sell retail, you got to have distribution, you got to have supply chain, you got to have security, you got to understand profits and all of those things. And it's understanding those dynamics to help me understand the basic tenets of business. I did not necessarily choose entrepreneurship in my childhood. I chose how to survive.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Yeah.
And so, I began at a very young age before the distribution of drugs. At that time, my mother just had me hold the money, and hide the money. You better not tell nobody you got the money, right?
Yeah.
But the real deal was I was going to the local grocery stores for the seniors that lived in the area. I was cleaning up because everybody knew who I was. They knew who kid I was. So I don't know, they may have had some sympathy for me, but I was cleaning up the local lounge. When they were closed, they would let me go in and take out the trash and those type of things. As I got a little bit older, I shoveled snow in the winter, raked leaves in the fall, mowed grass in the summer. And then the kids in the neighborhood wanted to do the same. So what I did was let them use my stuff. Now, I didn't know I was taking a 30% cut, because I cut grass, I get $10. They cut grass, they give me $3, they keep the $7. And so that's how business for me began to evolve. And I have been able to own and operate successfully. I've built about 12 businesses in multiple industries. Wow. We've sold them. We've never gone out of business. Couple of them were 7-figure income businesses, others were 6 figures. And now my passion is to help other entrepreneurs to do the same.
And with that said, work ethic was something that you knew at an early age.
Oh, yeah, you got to grind. You got to grind. There's 3 things that's going to help you become successful. And I say this all the time. I do an entrepreneurs call every Wednesday morning. And I tell them I deal with one of 3 things. I deal with your time, I deal with your grind, and I deal with your mind. How you're managing your time, what are you doing in your grind, and how is the healthiness of your mind? Because those 3 things are going to be essential if you're going to be successful.
Someone listening to this right now, I'm like, wow, this guy is like killing it in the game. He's making it sound easy, but we know that is not the case. Great success doesn't come easy. If that was the case, no. Everyone will be successful. For you, since we're kind of focusing on the failures that set you up for success, what were some of the dry seasons, if you will, where it's like, wow, this is real life. This is hitting me right now.
Man, real talk. Every success story I have came by way of a dry season. Every success story I have came by way of a moment of failure. I told you I was kicked out of 2 high schools. Well, I had either 0.9, 1.9 GPA freshman year in high school. Crazy, right? I never went to class. I shot dice. I pitched quarters. And, I did that, right? But then I was able to transform that to be freshman year in college, a 4.0 GPA.
Wow.
Right? Went from homelessness to having a $1 million real estate portfolio.
Wow.
You know, so how did we do it? I think, number one, we made a choice that failure may be something that happened to me, but it's not who I am. A lot of times when people fail, they become one with failure. And failure becomes their new identity.
Wow, yeah.
And when failure becomes your new identity, everywhere you go, failure follows.
Wow. Say that again. Yeah.
I'll say it again because you said so. When failure becomes your new identity, everywhere you go, failure follows.
Wow.
And so what I've sought to learn from my own experiences and those that I work with is that failure is not who you are, but it's a life lesson that says, oops, that didn't work.
Yeah.
Failure becomes the conduit for success. When you think of the vacuum cleaner, there was 10,000 prototypes.
Yeah.
Before they got one that could actually work.
Yeah.
You know, Tyler Perry talks about his early days, and he talked about a show that was terrible. He thought he was an epic failure. Mm-hmm. And what if he would have quit
at that time? Yeah.
At that time, we would have never known Medea.
Real facts.
Oprah was said she was not fit for television.
Yeah.
What if Einstein himself was dyslexic?
Yes, that's true.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Walt Disney. All of these to me, these are champions of failure that began to allow failure to become the fuel that was necessary for them to become successful. So the question is, what is your response when, not if failure happens, but when failure happens?
When you look at the opportunities you had early on to become an entrepreneur, like I said earlier in the show, work ethic for you wasn't something that was foreign. It was something that was embedded at a young age to be able to, if you will, just rise to the occasion.
Man, my work ethic is very, very important. You have to have an unbelievable work ethic and a sense of self-discipline and initiative in order to be successful in anything you do. But my work ethic was not based or built on a concept. It was based and built out of desperation.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I was homeless. I didn't have food to eat. So I was desperate to get out of this. And so the only way out was to establish a work ethic, was to grind my way out. And I couldn't wait on anybody to do it for me. I'm young at this time. I'm raising my little sister. Mom gone for a couple of weeks at a time. So I had to have a work ethic. Now, to that point, I'm thinking of my granddaddy, rest in peace. My grandfather also, I can say that I watched him, though I never lived with him. But I know that he worked 60 hours a week, sometime 80, for 40 years and only missed one day of work.
Wow.
And he's always said, if a man don't work, he shall not eat.
Yeah.
Man must live by the sweat of his brow. I saw Granddad sweat. Maybe that's why I sweat so much. That's why I bring towels everywhere I go.
I want to dig deeper because I want to paint this for the audience. At what point in your life did you have to face being homeless? Because I feel like that will really show a pivot.
So when I was with my mom, we bounced from house to house. So spot to spot. We never was at a spot longer than 6 months, it felt like. And then there was a short season of my life where I slept in my car for a short season. And then after that, my grandmother got me an apartment where the rent was like $300. I was a teenager, essentially, in this apartment, about 18 or whatever, where the rent was about $300. And so I just, again, had to start figuring some things out. And one thing I figured out is that I didn't like being hungry. And so, again, desperation causes you to move. It causes you to do something. And either one thing you could do can be to self-destruct, right?
Yeah.
Because we could find ourselves in desperate situations and we drink ourselves to death. We smoke ourselves to death. We eat ourselves to death, right? And sometimes we say, hey, I don't want to live no more. I had that moment, Shemaiah, and what I learned from myself is that I did not want to die. I just didn't want to keep living like this. And there's people that's listening to us today that may have thought about suicide. And the truth is they don't want to die, but they don't know, they don't want to live like this. And when you feel like there's no other choice,
then
you make that choice. And I'm saying that you got options.
And speaking of options, this goes right back to what we're talking about with the topic for today, setbacks to setups.
Yep.
When you were in the thick of it, of being homeless, I mean, I can only imagine in that moment, you probably had a short-term vision versus like, oh, what can I do in 10 years from now? I mean, you're probably like carrying this weight with you.
Well, absolutely. So the first thing I did was I found me a job in the process. So, bro, listen, man, I worked at UPS at night. I was working at UPS at night. I was doing courier service, meaning delivering packages downtown. Mm-hmm. And I was selling prepaid legal all at the same time.
Whatever it helps.
Man, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes. And so, and again, that season was short. I started my marketing and consulting firm when I was 19. I opened up my first dry cleaners when I was 20. And I did my first major on-stage production by the time I was 20. Matter of fact, I was opening up a dry cleaners and doing a big play called What's to Come as executive producer all at the same time.
Wow.
And that's the grind. I didn't have a dime. Money is not the limitation.
Yeah.
Creativity, grit, grind, and a mindset to win. That's the only limitation. Money is not a limitation. I've never secured a loan from a bank in my days of getting started. When I started my dry cleaners, I started with $80.
That's
$80.
That's legit.
I went to the printer, Shemaiah, and said, I need you to print up these those carbon copy tickets. Mm. I told at the place where I was working at a radio station at the time. I told them, I met with the GM, said, I'm starting a dry cleaners. And this dry cleaners is pickup only. And it's called Executive Dry Cleaner Solutions.
Wow.
For the executive.
That's good.
So I started picking up business professional clothing from their office. My co-workers started bringing their clothes to the office. Then within the church community, I started picking up pastor clothes. And what I would do is I'd pick up their clothes. I'll go home in my 1.5 bedroom apartment, $300 a month in rent. That's the other piece. Mm. You know, I never lived like I was a king.
Yeah.
I never lived beyond my means. Mm. And sometimes we get money and we spend it. We consume it.
That's a good point.
I got money and invested, saved it. So I'm sitting in the middle of my little living room tagging clothes at night.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. Getting up at 6 a.m. in the morning, dropping it off at the cleaners.
Wow.
Going to work, get off work, pick the clothes up, bag the clothes, deliver them to the clients. I did that for a year. Mm. And then I opened up a walk-in facility. And we built it to 4,000 customers, 2 locations.
Ooh. Wow. All right, you're the real deal, man. Dan Johnson flew in once again here at San Antonio in studio for this amazing interview. I mean, I'm inspired just hearing what you're saying because we live in a society where failure is pushed in your face through social media. Is pushed in your face through friends and family.
Yeah.
And success is not always celebrated for the ones like yourself in your perspective of this is what it took for me to get here. And it's not always celebrated. It's lonely at the top. So for you, how did you deal with people who may not understood your vision, but you had to still keep grinding?
And not only people that didn't understand it, people that didn't believe in it, right?
Yeah.
Because there's one sector of people that don't understand it. There's another sector of people that don't believe in it. And then there's another sector of people that's hating on it.
Yeah.
Right? They don't want to see you win.
Yeah.
And for me, part of my journey and my process was I had my first son at 20. Mm-hmm. So I had a why. And my why was my seed. Mm. And what I've learned is that if your why don't make you cry, it's not good enough. My why brought tears to my eyes. Yeah. So when I didn't feel like getting up, my why got me up. When I didn't want to do it, my why forced me to do it. Mm. Now that's 5 whys later. Mm-hmm. That became the fuel over the next couple of decades to get it done.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? What's your why? What's your motivation? And it can't be money. Because when you get the money, then what?
How are you going to keep it coming?
Not only how you going to keep it coming, but what's your next reason for living? What's your purpose? I teach people all the time, don't pursue money, pursue purpose. Mm-hmm. And in the pursuit of purpose, money is going to come. Yeah. A lot of times we start pursuing money, and the more we're chasing out the money, the more it's going to run from us. Because we'll never become satisfied. Mm-hmm. So you asked a question about what was that vision? Mm-hmm. My grandmother would tell me that when I was younger, I would always tell her that one day I'll be a millionaire. One day I'll be able to take care of her and buy houses and do all of those type of things. And so I believe that, every child, when you're coming up, they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And really what they're setting is that question causes you to begin to critically think of what your life would look like when you're no longer a child. So I had a vision of what my life could look like. I just didn't have a way out. I didn't have someone pointing me in the direction. And so if for those of you that's here today, it's 4 things that I've learned. And when it comes to overcoming failure in your life, it's 4 things that I've learned that can help you transform any failure you've ever experienced in your life into a success. The first thing that I've learned is focus. Mm-hmm. Don't bite the distractions. Yeah. You got to lock in. You got to stay focused on what the goal is. And with focus comes vision. Mm-hmm. Because without a vision,
scatterbrain,
people going to perish. That word perish means what you just said, scatterbrain. It means they become unconstrained. They become wild.
Mm-hmm. They try everything except for one thing.
Except that one thing.
Yeah.
And if you don't know where you're going without a vision, any road will take you there.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Okay, we'll got to put that on a t-shirt.
That's good. That's good, man.
If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.
Wow, that's profound. Yeah.
And so that's why we see people just going after this job, going after that job, because they really don't have vision. They don't know where they're going.
And they get frustrated.
They become frustrated.
Yeah.
So number 1, focus. Number 2, you must have confidence.
Yep.
I've learned that the difference in many times between the successful and the unsuccessful is not that the successful knows more. It's not that the successful has more money. It's not that the successful, is the smartest kid on the block. Mm-hmm. But the difference is confidence.
Yeah.
You could have all of the content and all of the information in the world, but if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will.
Say that.
If you don't believe in what you're doing, then nobody else is going to buy into what you're doing. You got to take ownership of leadership of your ship. Otherwise, your ship going to sail.
Man, I can't believe we only got 2 minutes left in the show, 1 minute in the show. It's crazy how time flies by. I always say that because great episodes and stories, time just melts like ice on the stove. So once again, man, we talking to Dan Johnson. Go to his website, dandjohnson.com. Today's topic, from setbacks to setups, transforming failure into success. I mean, so many things I want to say, but I can't even say it, but I will say this. This is breaking news, by the way. I never told anybody this except my mom. I'm working on a project. It's going to be like an ebook type thing. And everything you said, it aligns with this story I'm gonna write in this ebook. And basically what it is, I said this about a couple years ago with a pastor that used to be at this station. And we had a podcast interview talking about the idea of God giving us an assignment.
Yeah.
And the book is themed like a military style thing where God is the boss and he's giving you your papers for you to serve something that's bigger than yourself.
Absolutely.
And what's powerful is that this character is a fiction novel, but the character is battling with this because he doesn't know if he can lead. But there's a point in time where he has to lead because he's called on to lead. And there is a silent voice that guides him every step of the way.
Yeah.
So with that, Dan, once again, thank you for coming down here. What is your call to action and your message that you want to leave for our audience?
Hey, listen, we're getting ready to do a series of webinars along these lines, and the webinars are actually paid type webinars, but I'm going to offer it to your audience absolutely free. All they have to do is go to dandjohnson.com and subscribe there. Go to dandjohnson.com and you'll hear more about these transformative things that's happening, not only to me, but that's happening to people all across the country. People's lives are being changed because they gave failure a bill of divorcement. And I want to help those that are listening today transform their life by helping them to give failure a bill of divorcement. dandjohnson.com. Go ahead and subscribe. I'd love to have them join our transformational community.
Once again, like always, I want to say to my guest, Dan Johnson, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Shemai. It's been a pleasing pleasure. More than a privilege.